Additional films of the southern France invasion indicating the extensive preparations for the opening of the Fourth Front in the grand strategy to smash the Nazi European fortress. At a staging area in Naples, trucks, ambulances, jeeps, tanks, half-tracks, and other battle equipment are ready for quick loading. Final count brings the total of ships that participated in the Mediterranean operations to more than 1,000. All reached the assault area without opposition. The original beachhead extended across islands and shore points between Toulon and Cannes. From initial landings 15th August near Saint-Tropez and Saint-Maxime, advance elements pushed along the coast and inland against light opposition. Saint Raphael, 18th August. Allied emplacements at the rim of the beachhead below Cannes. A captured German pillbox utilizing a tank turret mounts 20mm and caliber 50 guns. A bulldozer hits a teller mine hidden in a roadblock. Seventh Army troops drive for the important harbors of Marseille and Toulon and up the Rhone Valley toward a junction with General Eisenhower's army in northern France. Spearheads extend to Spanish, Swiss, and Italian frontiers. Everywhere our troops pursue the German 19th Army, which desperately tries to escape destruction. Loyal Frenchmen come out of hiding places to greet American troops as Brignoles falls 19th August. By September, several hundred miles of the Mediterranean coastline are under Allied control. At Saint-Tropez, a tribute to the French forces of the interior for cooperation during the first days of the attack. Lieutenant General Alexander M. Patch and members of the French High Command attend the ceremonies. The Patriots are now reported to control 14 departments in southern France, totaling 50,000 square miles. They've not only been active in sabotaging the enemy's lines of communications, but have tied down substantial German forces. The awards are presented on behalf of the 7th Army by its commander, General Patch. After 4 years of underground activity, the F.F.I. meets an ally on liberated French soil. On the beach at Marina de Pisa, near the mouth of the Arno, these are part of the unusually strong fortifications through which the 5th Army fought during the drive on Pisa in mid-July. They were still under construction when the Germans were forced to retreat across the river. Reinforced with steel, the concrete walls are 10 feet thick. Also near Pisa, a canvas and burlap bridge across the Arno, erected by a Fifth Army camouflage unit as a decoy for German observers. Thrown across the river at night, it drew enemy artillery fire while a real Bailey Bridge was constructed at another point. At Florence in mid-August, armored cars of the British Eighth Army enter the Piazza Vittorio Emanuele. Liberated Florentines give an enthusiastic reception to the Tommies, driving some of the first armored vehicles to cross the Arno into the northern section of the city. Relief is brought after the greater part of the city, lying between Allied and German lines, had been without food, water, and lights for several days. Troops of the Eighth Army push north to eliminate Nazi pockets beyond the Mugnoni Canal, which runs through the outskirts of the city. One unit filing past the historic Cathedral Santa Maria del Fiore. Armored patrols keep the streets open to military traffic. Ponte Vecchio. Its 5 companion bridges spanning the Arno were destroyed by the Germans after they had declared Florence an open city. Citizens of Florence crossed the Arno, returning to their homes in the northern section. This rubble is all that is left of the Ponte alla Grazia, a bridge which stood for 700 years before it was destroyed by the retreating Nazis. On the one remaining bridge, the wreckage of shops was heavily mined. While the enemy is still sending patrols in the city from positions in the western and northern suburbs, Royal Engineers begin construction of a Bailey Bridge to replace another historic span demolished by the Germans. Two days later, the Bailey Bridge is open to military traffic. British units file across the new bridge to take up positions in the northern section. After 2 weeks of sporadic street fighting and one-way shelling from German batteries, all Florence is occupied by troops of the Eighth Army. On 19th August, Prime Minister Churchill, with Lieutenant General Mark W. Clark, inspects units of the Fifth Army in the Leghorn area. Brazilian Company Commander. The Prime Minister addresses Fifth Army troops. Visiting a field artillery position where Mr. Churchill fires a 240mm howitzer. En route to Leghorn Harbor for a tour of inspection. Repairs on Italy's third largest port had been underway for more than a month after German withdrawal above the Arno on 17th July. unauthorized enemy film allegedly depicting a Nazi counterattack east of Saint-Lô as infantry of the U.S. First Army endeavors to break through stubborn German defenses 17th and 18th July. Nazi tanks move up. A disabled Sherman tank. Films by German combat cameramen of an Allied plane attack on the Saint-Lô airfield. B-25 shot down by heavy anti-aircraft fire. Paratroopers and grenadiers of the Waffen-SS. British equipment supposedly wrecked in the Saint-Lô area. Actually, there were no British ground forces engaged in the Saint-Lô area. This scene has been arbitrarily included in the subject by German film editors. Yanked prisoners. Sixth Army troops leave a Southwest Pacific staging area for the Sansepor coastal area of Netherland, New Guinea. The move represents a leap of nearly 200 miles from previous advanced positions on Numfor Island. With this thrust against Sansepor, Allied forces bypassed the Japs' pivotal defense point of Vogelkop Peninsula, isolating about 15,000 enemy troops. It culminates 13 months of successive amphibious operations, advancing our lines more than 1,200 miles along the New Guinea coast. Landings are achieved virtually without opposition on the morning of 30th July. Objectives seized in addition to a 10-mile stretch of the Sansepor coast are the islands of Amsterdam and Middelburg off nearby Cape of Mare. Engineer reconnaissance reports Sansepor's terrain suitable for airfields, within bomber range of Halmahera Island and the enemy's Netherlands East Indies defenses. Barely more than 600 airline miles away is Mindanao in the Philippines. Cézambre Island in the harbor of Saint-Malo, where resisting Nazis blocked Allied use of Saint-Malo's port, first of Brittany's harbors isolated after the breakthrough from Normandy. Nazis repeatedly ignored requests to surrender. One of the last of these requests is made at 10:30 hours, 18th August. Delivering the message by Cub plane. Refusing to surrender, the Nazi garrison is once more attacked, this time from a hill near Dinard, where Americans used captured Nazi self-propelled 155mm howitzers. Capitulation came only after a siege of more than 3 weeks. General Patton's Third Army, sweeping across Brittany in multiple drives, advances toward Nantes, major port near the mouth of the Loire River. Entering Nantes, 10th August, after slight opposition. Troops continue to cut up enemy dispositions at the base of the Breton Peninsula, threatening units of the German 7th Army along the Loire River. Farther along the Loire, another American column advances toward Angers. Angers, occupied 10th August, celebrates its liberation by removing vestiges of Nazi occupation. Maquis recruits are instructed in the use of firearms. These are patriots of the French underground movement, men who resisted Nazi domination for 4 years. Battling rear-guard Nazis. Units of the Third Army consolidate the line along the Loire and press on east toward Orleans. American forces near Orleans attack elements of the German 7th Army at one of the largest airdromes in France, built by the Luftwaffe. The airport had been subjected to heavy aerial bombardment by Allied aircraft. Tired GIs salvaging inner spring mattresses from the airdrome's administration building. A 2,000-pound German bomb, one of many placed at intervals on the airfield to prevent the landing of Allied planes. On 9th August, an American armored column striking from the base of the Brittany Peninsula advances toward the important rail center of Le Mans. Infantry occupy the city of Le Mans 10th August after covering 55 miles in 36 hours. French civilians loot a German warehouse at the railroad yard in Le Mans. Supplies reach Le Mans from Cherbourg, a distance of 170 rail miles. French civilians and members of the Free French Army Work Battalion aid in sending supplies to the front lines. From Le Mans, Allied troops swing north in an effort to encircle the German 7th Army. French patriots demonstrate how they maintained contact with Allied forces by means of an improvised radio. Despite a German headquarters next door, news of Allied activities was received from D-Day until the time of liberation. Power was generated by an old motor and a bicycle. On 12th August, an armored column enters Alençon, narrowing the German escape route. Allied forces advance north to the town of Sète, steadily compressing the pocket holding 80,000 of General von Kluge's desperate 7th Army. Brigadier General Jacques-Philippe Leclerc arrives at a forward echelon to consult with members of his staff. A French-manned American tank that received a direct hit from a German 88mm gun. Shelling Argentan. Through the city passes the main lateral road along which the whole German left and center would expect to retire. Direct hit on a German ammo truck. Entering Argentan at 1200 hours, 20th August. Meanwhile, British forces strike south from Caen. Just west of Saint-Sylvain on the Falaise front of the Argentan-Falaise pocket, a Canadian armored division closes in on the German escape route. On the Vire-Mortain front at the extreme western end of the Falaise-Argentan pocket, artillery units of the American First Army repelled strong enemy attempts to break through our positions to the sea and cut supply lines of the Third Army. Entering Gatemo, north of Mortain, 11th August. Armored vehicles advance on Mortain after throwing back another enemy counterattack, one of the most decisive actions of the campaign. Mortain, after changing hands several times, is occupied 13th August. French patriots volunteer for service. American forces narrow the German escape route in the Argentan sector, entering La Ferté-Macé, 14th August. Spanish workers in a German labor battalion at Carouge, which fell 13th August. British troops advancing towards Saint-Lambert-sur-Dives as they seek to effect a junction with American forces. Mongol prisoners. German officers at Saint-Lambert-sur-Dives surrender as the escape gap begins to close. Nazis rounded up by French forces of the interior. The Falaise Argentin pocket closes 19th August as U.S. troops advancing northward from east of Argentin effect a juncture with Canadian and Polish units moving down from Trun. Preparing to fire a request to surrender to remnants of the trapped German 7th Army. Offering the enemy food and water, the message warns Nazis they are surrounded by a ring of steel. Captured German Lieutenant General Otto Elfelt and 2 of his staff at Nonon-le-Pin. 10,000 Nazis caught in the Falaise Argentin pocket are imprisoned in a concentration camp formerly used by the Germans. General Eisenhower confers with Undersecretary of War Robert P. Patterson and Lieutenant General Breon Somerville in the Cherbourg Peninsula. British Foreign Secretary Anthony Eden. General Charles de Gaulle and General Eisenhower. French patriots take up arms for a march toward Paris. From a hay-lofted Chartres, 45 miles outside the capital, they remove long-hidden weapons. French forces of the interior pile up difficulties for the Germans over the entire area bordering on Paris. Their job is to remove Nazi strongpoints, clearing the way for Allied columns. Demolition fires set by the Germans within the city. The center of Paris is quiet. A French cameraman photographed these scenes before the first uprisings of 18th August. F.F.I. headquarters. 50,000 adequately armed Maquis soldiers await the signal to rise from hideouts in the Montparnasse and Montmartre sectors. At this command post, a command post within Nazi-held Paris, the F.F.I. maps its strategy. Street barricades are erected for the impending battle with the German occupation forces. The street fighting begins. German troops in Paris number 10,000. The Cross of Lorraine identifies a French tank participating in the fighting. A few de Gaullist patrols have filtered into the city. A patriot fires at a German street fighter. The fatally wounded Nazi soldier is quickly disarmed. German elements attempt to flee the city. The F.F.I. takes hundreds of prisoners, but still faces strong opposition. Allied armor speeds toward Paris 6 days after the outbreak of hostilities within the city. Vehicles are halted while Frenchmen remove roadblocks set up by the retreating enemy. Crowds greet the French 2nd Armored Division, which enters the city on the morning of 25th August, led by General Leclerc. They arrived accompanied by American units on orders from General Bradley to clean up the remaining Germans inside Paris. First patrols of the 2nd Division had entered Paris the night before to occupy German headquarters at Hotel de Ville and the police prefecture. Approaching the Eiffel Tower. Street fighting flares up at frequent intervals. Civilians rush for shelter as 2nd Division tanks return fire of another German point of resistance. Shelling the École Militaire, where German snipers are still entrenched. Nazis who held out within the Institute of Germany, formerly the Polish legation. Prisoners sweep the streets in front of German headquarters at the Hotel Majestic. French and American troops ride past Paris landmarks. Notre Dame Cathedral. Through the Place de la Concorde toward the Champs-Élysées and the Arc de Triomphe. More collaborationists are rounded up. Prisoners are hissed and manhandled by the excited crowds. At 1700 hours, Friday, 25th August, Lieutenant General von Scholtitz, commander of the Paris region, had officially surrendered the German garrison. The Nazis entered Paris 14th June 1940. Today, it is the first continental capital of a full-fledged ally to be freed from Nazi domination. The first U.S. flag in Paris.